welcome to the first episode of Around the Wicket. My name is Sam, and I'm joined by Aiden, Jack, and Jye. First up, we will throw to Aiden, who will tell us a bit about himself. Take it away, mate.
All right, so big follower of cricket. I've played since I was about 13, but loved watching the game, supporting the game since I was about 8 or 9 probably. Obviously, every summer it was sort of that, or the beach for me, living quite close to the beach. So my favourite player, I did love Mike Hussey, but he retired pretty quickly after I started supporting it. His sort of prime period was a bit before I started watching. And then a bloke called Mitch Johnson came on the scene right in the sweet spot when I started watching it about 2013, 14. And basically just single-handedly tore apart the Palms, which is, as an Aussie, nothing better to see. And he did it with a pretty awesome mow as well. That's obviously led me to support the Perth Scorchers in the Big Bash, obviously with their success and him coming back when he retired from internationals for the country. And then there was one final where he tore the Stars apart. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a Perth Scorchers man, even though I'm from Victoria, which the boys probably give me a bit of stick for. But yeah, love them. But in saying that, favourite format's Test. I think there's nothing better than sitting and watching a Test match and having a beer during summer. It's just like the story and all the intense ball by ball, like everything matters across a whole day, which is like no other sport has that. And obviously, like I said before, my favourite ever moment in cricket was probably Mitchie J's all-round 2013-14 season. I've actually been known to have still watched that, and I've probably watched the replay of all these wickets about upwards of 20 or 30 times already. So I probably will continue to watch it as I go on.
The power of the mustache, I reckon you're rocking the little one there yourself. Is that something?
I'm trying to channel it. Yeah, hasn't quite worked as well for me, but yeah, I'll get there.
Hasn't translated on the cricket field, cricket pitch.
Not quite. One day, you got to hold out hope.
Absolutely beautiful, mate. All right, we'll throw to you, Jack. Tell us a bit about yourself, mate.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Sam. Oh, yeah, g'day, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast. Love cricket a long time. I think the first game I went to was a T20 between Australia and England. I think it was 2009. Anyway, it was a long time ago. Just loved it. Played it, as Aiden said, since I was real little. The favourite player is Nathan Lyon. I don't know what it is. I just love him. He's just a great character. He's able to get us wickets when we need him, and he's just I don't know. I just love him, and he inspired me to become an off-spin bowler. And love Test matches, as Aiden said. There's nothing better than on a summer's day sitting back and just watching the great duel between two teams in the longest format of the game. And then I'm a massive Renegades fan. I went to the BBL 08 grand final. That was pretty good to see the Stars strike. That was nice. And then favourite moment was Nathan Lyon cleaning up India at the Adelaide Test 2014, I think it was. That was a very good day.
Beautiful. Well said, mate. All right, Jye.
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. Excited to be on. It's going to be a huge summer of cricket. Like the boys, I've loved cricket ever since I could hold a bat and a ball, I guess. Played since I was about 8. And still continue to play today. My favourite BBL team is the Melbourne Stars. I'm a proud Victorian, Melburnian, so I had to go for one of the two teams. Originally, I was going to be a Melbourne Renegade, and then I jumped ship at the last minute and went to Stars, just purely because, who doesn't love cricket at the MCG over Marvel Stadium? And I think at the time they had better players signed up. Now they had like Warney and stuff like that, so they got me over the line. And unfortunately, we are still to win a title. We've been dominant throughout the home and away seasons, but just haven't touched the silverware yet. So hopefully it's not too far away. Like the boys said, Test cricket is the best format. You just sit there all day, watch cricket. You just never know what's going to happen next. And my favourite player is Pat Cummins. He does it all, that man. can do it with the ball. Number one bowler in the world. His batting's really good, I think, and he can certainly field as well. So love Paddy. And that's pretty much all about me. What about you, Sammy?
Beautiful, yeah. So I'm from Tassie, obviously, as I frequently mention a few times a day. Remind everyone. So my favourite player is George Bailey. I think he's one of the most underrated players. I've always loved him growing up. My mum knows him, not very well, but just claim to fame, just thought I'd throw it out there. Obviously always loved cricket. Never really been any good at it. Me and my brother used to play backyard cricket. We were unique individuals though. So we played literally with a cricket ball and we're bowling away from the house, so hitting towards the house and a few smashed windows. And with the cricket ball in the backyard, we weren't the smartest kids going around. So my BBL team has to be the Hobart Hurricanes. And my favourite moment is George Bailey hitting James Anderson for 28 off the 1 over. And obviously my favourite format is Test as well as all you boys. So we'll touch on the 3 women's ODIs. The ODI series had just ended. So of course we did end that to 2-1. First ODI we won by 9 wickets, so quite comfortably. The second was quite interesting. We lost it there for a second, but then we won it obviously on the last ball. But taking that run, I think it was called a no ball from memory. Feels like an eternity ago, but was it called a no ball in the end, wasn't it? And we snuck over the line on the last ball. So second ODI, look at the scoreboard. We did win by 5 wickets, but it doesn't tell the whole story, obviously. We did lose it there for a couple of minutes on the last ball, and then obviously it was called third umpire had a bit of a gaze at it, and it was called a no ball, and we ended up winning on the last ball. Did you watch that one, Jack?
Yeah, it was a very, very close game. We looked absolutely out of it. We were like 4 for 60 after 20 overs or so. And then, that no ball, very borderline. Definitely wouldn't want it to go against us, but happy to go our way.
It was very close, very close. Aiden, do you watch it, mate?
I think from memory we had, I can't remember who it was, but one of the girls had a big innings. And I remember flicking it on because you were going pretty crazy about it, and I flicked it up on KO on my phone, and I can't remember who exactly it was, but she couldn't get up to the striker's end for the last ball, and I was quite worried. But I remember there being 1 no ball already in that over, and we're all pretty confident because I think the Indian bowler, she wasn't very consistent. I think she was spraying them a little bit. And then I actually saw the last wicket get taken. I think she was caught at square leg. And I remember just turning it off. I turned my phone off. I'm like, oh, no, that's it. Because obviously really backing the girls to win. It was a big second game of the series. And then all of a sudden, I checked the group chat and you were saying that we're going to win. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? I just witnessed us lose. And it was above the waist. And then we turned out, we only needed 1 left, and I think we got 2 off the last ball for good measure or something like that. And the Indian girls were pretty disappointed, as you would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Beth Mooney, 125, not out.
That's it. Yeah.
Innings.
I did watch. I think I flicked it on in the second last over, and she was playing very well, but she couldn't quite get enough strike to get us home until the last ball. But awesome innings.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jye, did you watch it, mate?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. And moments like that can actually crush the confidence of a team. And I know, like Aiden just said, how the Indians would have been disappointed. And Australia were on a 26-match winning streak. And for India, their confidence could have been absolutely crushed after that game. But to go into the third ODI and actually win it, I thought was a good bounce back by them. That's one of the things that I took out of it. I know it's not when looking at the Aussies from their point of view, but for India to come back the way they did, I thought was really good.
I think that's a hallmark of Indian teams of like the last few years. Like they're really hard to play against regardless of the players because they're really mentally tough. And we obviously found that out last summer with the men's test team. handing us a big loss in the series, even though they were severely undermanned. I think, like you're saying, for them to be against our girls, who probably the best team in the world in that format for obviously 26 games in a row, and then lose like that, which is couldn't actually just rip you apart and not want to play, and then come out and win. I think India as a whole cricket nation just have really good mental, capacity to just keep going and keep fighting, get results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it seems like Aiden's going out, but am I right in saying they didn't, as you said, they wouldn't have been very confident going into that third ODI. And I think just in the end of the second ODI as well, I don't think their fielding was pretty average too, wasn't it?
All over the place, yeah.
And all that, which sort of helped us. There's a few no ball opportunities that we probably should have capitalised on more as well, I think, from memory. But yeah, they wouldn't have been very high on confidence. So to win the third match was big credit to them. All right, moving on to the test, which is obviously a bit disappointing. Day-night test where was it, on the Gold Coast. So India was a much better team. Luckily, it didn't go for an extra day or two because we were just, they were a lot better team. Perry, obviously 68 not out, and I'm going to screw the pronunciation up, so help me out a bit here. But, man, how do we say it? Just say it for me.
Smitty Mandana, I think.
That is incredible. 127, so great innings. Obviously, Perry as well, so 474 runs, what we got here, in the last 5 test innings from just over 1,000 deliveries, only being dismissed once. So that is quite incredible. She's the first Australian and first female as well to join the 5,000 plus runs and 300 plus wickets, joining an elite list. Jarks, Callis and the like on there as well. So that is an incredible feat. Did any of you boys want to say anything too much about the test? Obviously, it was a bit disappointing, but
I think it's interesting. Obviously, the girls are pretty new to it. They don't play it much. I think that when I was watching, they were talking about they haven't really played since the Ashes. And it's interesting how they run their series because it's all actually intertwined. Whereas obviously with the men's series, each format is separate totally. Obviously, they play more matches, but this is a point system on total games won in all formats. And it goes 1 day test 2020, which I think is interesting. There's a lot of talking points and questions you can ask from the whole series, like the order of the formats, why is it played on the Gold Coast? Because obviously there was rain and, all the rest of it. And Metricon isn't, known as a cricket ground much, but so I don't think there shouldn't be too much cricket there unless they can improve it. And then also women's test cricket being 5 days, because obviously it's only 4. And I'm sure the Indian girls would have loved it to be 5 days. And it's interesting what it is for, because you do get results like this where, we're down, we've just avoided the follow-on by 15 runs, and then we declare in the sake of, even though we're 130 runs behind, you get weird cricket being played, I guess. But I love them seeing the girls play a day-nighter, seeing them in the white uniforms. I think there should be more of them. I think you should have at least 2 tests. If there was another test coming up right now, it'd be massive because of how this one ended, and Mundanar's form and Elise Perry, and even though we collapsed like the men do in our first innings, it'd be great to see, and I think it's on the incline. I think it'll improve, but still a lot of improvements to be made, I reckon.
So obviously the day-night test with the terms of the time that the rain came in and all that, even if it was just 4 days, do you think there would have been a result if it was just a regular 10 o'clock, whatever start? Would that made much of a difference opposed to being a day-nighter? I'm trying to think, I can't remember now, when the rain sort of came in, was it a bit later on in the day? Or
I think
would it make much difference?
In that part of the world, obviously the coastal, Queensland, it's very tropical. So I think you're right in saying you probably would get a bit more rain in that period, playing at that time frame. But then again, in the mornings, in that you get dew and stuff like that. I do think if there was an extra day, India probably would have won. They would have been really aggressive, being down 2-1 overall in the series. I think they would have been way more aggressive and tried to win, and probably would have. They were the better team, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, better team. But then again, I guess we wouldn't have. I mean, I guess the whole reason for the declaration is they're trying to get some sort of a result out of it. I guess. So
Yes.
it would have been a lot more. I guess the tactics would have been a lot different if it was obviously an extra day and there was more time and whatever. But Jack, Jye, do you have anything to add, boys?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on. Oh, sorry, Joe. That
No, you're right.
I think women definitely need to play more cricket, as Aiden said, because like Meg Lanning won the toss and elected to bowl on a wicket that wasn't really offering much to the bowlers. So I think that's because they played so much short form of the game where you can elect to bowl first. You know, it's just not entrenched in their brain yet that you do bat first in a test match unless the wicket is completely green. So that's what I took away from it. Jye?
Good read.
Yeah, well, you touched on what I was going to add about winning the toss. I mean, the rain probably nearly saved Australia there in that sense, because if you're going to win the toss and bowl first, you got to take wickets up front. And, you know, they got out to 2 for 195 at one stage. And, you know, you're a long way back from there. So I think if the rain didn't affect the game, then the toss would have affected, you know, Australia's chance anyway. So, yeah.
So if there was no rain, basically, what we're saying, if there was a result, obviously we would, you know, looking like India were going to win. The pressure would have been, did you say the pressure would have been on Meg Lanning for making that decision? Because obviously it proved, I mean, so I guess you could say it arguably may have got lucky in the end, but it would have proven to be a very, I guess, a bad decision in the end as well. If it wasn't.
Yeah. India would have been a lot closer to winning that game. So,
yeah.
It was interesting. She also, when the second new ball came out in the first innings, she also gave it to a first gamer instead of like your Elise Perry or someone like that, which I remember the commentators questioning at the time. So, I mean, but that, again, that's like Speech is saying, is just experience in the test format. Especially because, yeah, and like Jye was saying, they were 1 for 190 and she's given the second new ball to a first gamer. And Mundanar's just licked her lips and going, yeah, I'm going to bat all day. And she did. But India would have batted for, if there was no rain, probably the first 2 days, even 2.5, and put our win, chances of us winning completely out of the picture. But yeah, it's lucky for the rain.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to the men's cricket. So obviously at the moment, I'm not sure if you boys have seen too much of it. The IPL, the Indian Premier League, or has been working on it, but it doesn't necessarily mean I've been watching it because it's there. But yeah, obviously we'll go through some of the Aussies that are playing in it, and then if you've guys seen them play an innings or two or whatever, just sort of shout out. Obviously David Warner has been dropped. So my question to you guys is, what kind of form is he going to be carrying into the World Cup? Which is obviously not too far away. I haven't got it written down. I believe from his 2 innings, he scored sort of 1 run each, I think, something like that.
A 2 and a
you, Jack?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's concerning, but then as we were sort of touching on a little bit earlier, was, you know, and with our World Cup squad, you know, we only have Finch and Warner for our openers, so we're kind of a little bit stuck in that regard. Like he's obviously going to have to play, and I mean, honestly, Warner's hasn't played good cricket for a long time, really. So I think it is a little concerning. I think our whole squad is probably a little concerning in saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just put a disclaimer out there too. Jack lives in the middle of nowhere, so if he looks a bit like a robot, that's probably always a pretty poor internet, but we love him anyway. Jye, have you seen? I mean, have you been seeing too much of the IPL, mate, or David Warner at all, or any? Obviously?
Yeah, look, just on. Well, you asked what sort of form he's going to be carrying in. Well, he's got none, has he?
Yeah.
But he's going to be opening the batting for us in the World Cup, and for me, I think he goes a long way for us winning it. If Dave Warner's playing well and making runs at the top of the order, Australia's playing well and winning most games. So we're going to rely heavily on him making runs along with Finch, and take the pressure off the middle order coming in through those middle overs there. So it'll be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Aiden, do you have too much to add, mate? Or?
Well, I think in a usual like T20 World Cup year, you wouldn't read too much into IPL form because if I'm not mistaken, the IPL is usually in April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's in India. But this year it's in, I think there's matches in Middle East, is it? In Abu Dhabi? Yeah. UAE. So obviously, same part of the world, but completely different wickets, area, time frame. But in saying that, that's where the World Cup is as well, if I'm not mistaken. So this is sort of a unique instance in IPL form, is actually exactly what you need to read into, because it's literally practice for the World Cup, because it runs straight into it. So like guys that are playing in the World Cup playing well or not playing well, they're probably going to play the same way because they've been playing on the same wickets and will continue playing the same wickets throughout the World Cup. So yeah, with Dave, I think that's probably not a positive. It's probably a negative, him getting dropped after being captain last year. I think a lot of people were struggling with it, with the difference in pitches and stuff. Not so much the people that are from that part of the world, I guess, but I guess the positive is with Dave, I think he does have a chance where he's that sort of guy that when it's for his country and when it's like, real important, like I reckon he'll just be angry. He'll be angry getting dropped, and he's the sort of guy that when he gets pissed off, he comes out and bats aggressively. Yep. And quite often, if he's batting aggressively, he's making runs or he's going out quickly. So either one, really, it's fine for us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to the Stoin, Marcus Stoinis. Jack, could you provide us a bit of an injury update on him, mate? What's going on there?
Yeah, I was reading up last night on Stoinis' injury because he did his hamstring bowling first game back after the IPL restart. So it's expected he will return soon because there's been a few little mock squad lists for I'm not too sure what team he's playing for, or Daly, sorry, missed that. So yeah, Daly's squad list. People have been having him in their teams for upcoming games. So I assume that means that's good news, especially for the World Cup. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at the moment with his injury, that he should be returning soon.
Yep, beautiful. That's what we want to hear, mate. Glenn Maxwell, the big show, has been absolutely firing. What's the averaging? Touch over 60, taking a few wickets, high score of 57. This is some great stats by Jack, I'm saying. Obviously, we're watching him. I think it was last night's speech. You were watching him. What do you think about his form, mate? How's he going?
I mean, yeah, three straight 50s. Last three games, 57 obviously last night, which was a very good innings to get RCB out of a bit of a hole that they were stuck in for a little bit, and obviously gave them a winning total. So that was very good. He started off slow, but yeah, he's hit I think 4 sixes, and he looked like Glenn Maxwell, and I think that's the real positive, as we've been saying, heading to the World Cup, for him to have good form. As Jye said, it's good to have these players in form, and they will go a long way to us winning the World Cup.
Absolutely. Aiden, Jye, do you want to add anything on Glenn Maxwell, boys? You've seen
what I think about it, obviously you guys were talking about it last night, and I woke up and I sort of saw all the updates about he basically put him in a really good position and is leading them to the finals in the absence of Kohli not making runs, which is also an added bonus. I think the good thing about that is if they do play, playoffs or finals, whatever they call it, in the IPL, that's just more cricket for Glenn in the lead up to the World Cup. And I think for him, the more, the better. Even if, his runs go down, like he's playing more cricket, which means he's getting more used to the wickets and the grounds and the weather and everything. And for us, like I would say he's top 3 most important players for us in the World Cup looking ahead. So the more cricket he can play, the better. And it looks like he's going to play more cricket than half the teams if they make finals. So I think it's, nothing but positives on his front.
Yeah, absolutely. Jye, mate, you've seen much of the big show recently?
Oh, I love watching this guy play. But he's the sort of guy that makes you nervous, because he'll either come out and try something stupid and he'll make nothing, or he'll come out and make 80 off 30 or 40 balls. And he's just the sort of guy that can win you a game himself. I've seen him do it multiple times for the Stars. And, his batting will go a long way as well. to us winning the World Cup. So I'm hoping that he can perform at his absolute best, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. When he's at his best, Australia's at the best. He's a dynamic player, very good player. Shame he doesn't play for the Hurricanes. All right, Smudge. Move on to Smudge. Steve Smith, 48 runs, and that with an average of 24 across 2 innings. He hasn't played. He's only played two games there by the looks of it. So he hasn't played, a hell of a lot. Do you have any of you boys seen him play recently, or your thoughts?
Yeah, I obviously looking over the list when I heard we were talking about obviously the IPL and our Aussie boys that are over there. I think namely Stephen Smith's probably the biggest name in Aussie cricket in the last 5 years. Probably not silly to say that. So looking into him, I think him and T20 cricket have sort of not really ever been that much of a match as he has in the other formats. And I sort of got wondering why, and I've wondered why for quite a while. Because you look at like some matches, you look at it and we would have played a test series and there might be some 2020s afterwards. And you'll come out and those 2020s, he bats, makes it 60 and wins us games. And you're like, yep, Steve Smith's the best in the world, But then you look at this IPL, he hasn't played any cricket for months before it. Hasn't played any test matches, one days, and he's come in and he's batting quite average. So I think when he has a test series before a 2020 series, he blitzes it because he's had batting and he's been warmed in. But when he's playing sort of 2020 off nothing, like when the 2020 series is first or when there's just a standalone series, I don't think he bats as well, and I think it's quite a worry. And I'm not sure why. I think maybe in the 2020 format, he doesn't have enough time because I think he might be one of those batsmen who, at this stage of his career, like the later stages, he's come over the hump of being the best test bat in the world. And he's sort of becoming a test specialist or, where he has time and he can leave all these balls alone. Because you see him when he starts his test innings, he'll leave heaps alone and he'll scream and he'll twitch and everything. And you think, all right, yeah, Steve's in for this. He's waiting for it because his temperament is awesome. Him and Marnus are the best in the world at that, I reckon. But in 2020 cricket, it rushes him. And I think that he really doesn't handle it. And I think on top of that, you've got bowlers with, like 2020 bowlers these days, they have at least 6 or 8 different deliveries. And I think that's getting Steve because he can't, sit there and in a test match, the bowler's going to put it on the same spot for 4 balls in a row every over. And they might try something on the 5th or 6th. But in 2020 cricket, every ball's different, Nelly. And I think that's really affecting Steve because he can't get any, continuation and flow to his batting. So it might be a mental thing. He might come out in 2020s and not be able to get into his mental state where he would in the test arena. So I think this World Cup and this IPL coming off no cricket for months is really hurting him. And I'm actually quite worried for his World Cup because obviously he's going to get picked, he's Steve Smith and he's very important. I think he's second most important behind Glenn. And I think it's quite worrying because I think he's not very much of a T20 player anymore. I think, to be honest, there's guys that could surpass him quite quickly.
Yeah, well said, mate. Jack, Jye, anything else to add, boys?
I reckon Aiden's pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one. Not so much else to really add. That was good.
Yeah, that's good. It's beautiful. All right, sweet. Moving on then. So Dan Christian, obviously, and then Nathan Coulter-Nile as well. They've played a couple of games. I don't think they've done anything too crazy, have they? Or
no.
Let's have a look. I'm trying to read the stats now. It looks like they're pretty not the best. So we'll sort of skip over them. I'm not sure how much they'll be playing anyway. Nathan Ellis, what do you think of him, Jack? Have you seen much of him, mate?
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's got a few games under his belt since the restart, and he's looked okay at times, and other times he's looked not great at all. He's only picked up the 1 wicket in 12 overs, so it's not amazing. And obviously he's not in there for his batting either. So I don't know. I think he's definitely got he's definitely got the potential to really, take a game by storm, but just not in the best of form at the moment.
Yeah, no, well said, mate. I think you said it beautifully the other night as well. He's either taking wickets and doing really well, or he can have the potential to leak a few. I think the other day it was zero, it's written down here, 0 for 50 odd. So he can have the, he can go for a few, but he can also do some good things. Jye, have you seen much of him, mate? Or
no, I haven't watched him in the IPL, but in the Big Bash last year, I noticed a bit of him. And obviously, this is where he's got his opportunity from performing in the Big Bash. And I thought he was absolutely fantastic. He bowls with good pace, mixes it up. He's got his opportunity now. He's still only, how old is he, do you know?
Oh, Jack's the man for that, mate.
Not off the top of my head, he's still only
He's a young guy, isn't he? He's a young guy. A lot of development in him, and that'll come. He'll come back to the Big Bash. I think he is travelling with the World Cup, isn't he? The team.
Great question.
He's
in the
reserve player.
Yeah. So he'll go over there and he'll learn some things. He'll come back to the Big Bash and perform again. And I'm sure he's got a future in Australian cricket. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Hat-trick on debut as well, if I remember correctly, for the Aussies. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Is that right, sir? Aiden, do you have much to add on Nathan Ellis, mate?
Yeah, I think with Ellis, I think he's one of those ones probably with Sam's that they've picked to come over to the UAE for the World Cup, if for nothing other than just to develop them, because they obviously see the potential in them. And I think it's World Cup's those ones where you can pick 2 players on the end that might not get a game, but they're going to get a hell of a lot of experience bowling to clean in the nets or, sub-fielding and stuff like that in a world competition as big as the World Cup.
All right, so moving on, we have Hoff and Moses, Moses played his first game back last night. By the time this goes out, the night before, sort of scored 12 not out, but then did take 3 wickets as well. And Hazel was taking 6 wickets and an economy of 9.3. It's probably a tad higher than we'd like, but so moving on. All right, so we'll touch on the Marsh ODI Cup real briefly. Then if you guys have any opinions or thoughts to add, just jump in. Obviously, we started off with Western Australia versus South Australia. WA won by 78 runs with a ton to Alex Carey. What else we got here? Berendorf 4 for 39 and Mitch Marsh 111.
Interesting. That Marsh is back here making runs. Obviously, he's in the World Cup squad and he's very important to the team. I think in our last 2020 series against who was that against?
Bangladesh.
I can't remember. Bangladesh. I think he was the one that kept us in that. I remember. I think a lot of the people around Australia are sort of against him because of what he's done in the Test arena. And so sort of regrettably, I had a look and he just kept, being our highest run scorer, even when, we were putting up scores of less than 120 and whatnot, he was still almost making 50. So it's interesting he's not in the IPL. Obviously, he's didn't quite get enough form up or don't really know the story there, but it's good to see he's making runs here. I just hope that translates to the wickets over in the UAE because obviously he's really important with the bat and the ball for our World Cup chances.
Yeah, he's in career best form. He's been incredible. And I believe, I hate saying this, but I believe the exact words out of your mouth were, you're playing bad when Mitch Marsh is scoring runs. Is that sort of how it went down, Aiden, or something similar to that, or what was it, mate?
Yeah, it did. Even though he's Scorcher's captain and stuff like that, I'm an Australian Test team. Their priority for me, and just he annoyed me like he annoyed a lot of the country when he kept getting picked and not producing. But I think he's sort of the opposite of your traditional Test player. He's sort of come up dominating the shorter forms with his aggressive batting. But now I remember he got a few wickets in that Bangladesh series as well. So you do have to admit he's playing very, very well. The team just wasn't. So, I wasn't wrong about the team playing badly. but I was wrong about what Mitch Marsh can do for us.
Also, mate, absolutely. Jye, did you watch much of that game, mate? Do you remember sort of?
No, I didn't watch much of it, but yeah, Mitch Marsh, he cops a lot of stick, but I think you got to put the red ball cricket aside for him. White ball is definitely his go, and we can see the talent he's got. You know, he's a big boy and he hits the ball a long way. So obviously his talent's there with the bat. He can do it with the ball as well. He gives you another option, and you know he's brilliant in the field. He'll hardly drop a catch as well. So look, I think Mitch Marsh can play a key role in our World Cup as well.
Yep, beautiful speech.
I think you go.
Aiden, speech.
I go
go
Aiden
Space.
first. I'm going to completely switch the subjects now. You go.
Yeah, I was as well. I think you mentioned Alex Carey made some good runs just before you mentioned Mitchie. So I was just going to get your thoughts on him. He's an interesting one, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think he should definitely be probably the next keeper after Tim Paine at probably all levels. And also just on that innings for Carey, he was the only one that made 20 or more. So that was a little sad for South Australia. But yeah, no, he's definitely in some good form, and yeah, I'd definitely keep it the future for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see sort of the same there, Jye? Do you see him as the next keeper across all formats?
Yeah, 100%. He'll be our keeper for the next, 10, 12 years. And I don't know about you boys, but I can see him as a potential captain as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like when you sort of think about it as well, you said next 10 to 12 years. I mean, even you talk next sort of 4 to 5 years. I'm not trying to force anyone into retirement here, but there's not going to be too many other options. Like, David Warner will never be any sort of captain again for Australia. Smith will be getting towards the end of it. Like, he will be, up in he's obviously been around a little while now. But yeah, I completely agree. I think he will be as well. Speech?
Yeah, I mean, he's already been captain at, was it T20 or one day when Finch was out. So he's already got that experience as captain at the international level. So yeah, I definitely agree with that call.
Were you going to add something else for you, or we already covered that?
No, we already jumped into what I was going to cover. We're all good.
Wait, all right. Can I ask a question real quick before we move on to the Sheffield Shield? Talking about captains, I want to get your opinion on Tim Paine as a captain, just in general, sort of when he came in, how he's going now. As a cricketer, I know it's sort of a bit off topic, but I'll start with you, Jye. What are your thoughts on him, mate?
Oh, when he was announced as captain, I thought, here we go. We're in a bit of trouble now. Like Tim Paine, he'd been out of Test cricket for however long. He'd only just come back, and then he was given the captaincy. But I think we can all agree that he's been absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we've all seen the Test, the documentary on Amazon, and the behind the scenes look at Tim Paine was, first class. His leadership is outstanding. He's a great role model, and he's actually batted pretty well too. He digs in when he has to, and I think he saved us a Test match in Pakistan a couple of years ago, which was really good as well. So yeah, he's been really good. Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, so I try to stay out of this a little bit as much as I can. But yeah, I completely agree with you. His Test, I haven't got it in front of me. Speech would know, he's the stats man. But his Test average, actually, he's not scoring huge scores. I don't know if it's just because he's getting a lot of not outs or whatever, but his average is actually not terrible. Speech, what is it, mate? Tell me.
I don't know, but I think it's around 30. Like it's around 35. Like it's not terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I could completely agree with you.
You're the keyboard typing. Yeah, I think he's been fantastic. Just when he came in at probably one of the darkest, sort of time periods in Australian, not just Test matches, Australian cricket, Australian sporting history. Like it was pretty average time. We can all agree on that. So yeah, he came in and I think he's been sensational. I mean, he's definitely the unlikely captain, unlikely player in general because he wasn't. If I remember correctly, and it's quite a few years ago now, but he wasn't in. His Sheffield Shield hadn't scored a ton in however many years. He was sort of dropping off and looking like, this is the end. And then I sort of think about it every now and again how crazy it is. You sort of pinch yourself because like he's had that injury with like his pinky or one of his fingers, whatever it was. And it was sort of recurring or whatever. I think it was in like one of the charity matches or whatever he done it in. And just sort of, it was looking basically game over. Like that was it. career finished. Not right then, but sort of only a few years ago. And to think, still like sort of pinch yourself to think that he's led Australia to a national series and everything. Like it's crazy for being Tasmania in general. Like just crazy. What are your thoughts on the speech?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think, as he said, came in the darkest time of Australian cricket, the sandpaper gate and everything. And I think the way he handled not just himself, but I think the whole group in the rest of that South Africa tour was, I don't think anyone else could have done any better. It was really, for the situation that we're in, was first class. And I think even now, I think he leans on guys like Smith. Obviously, they're not captain or like vice captain, whatever, but like he's good at delegating and getting advice from everyone. It's not just his way is the highway. And I think that's what I like most about Tim Paine, is that he's flexible with his leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's sort of he's a good bloke. Like he's pretty funny. And probably the best things for me just came only a few days ago, and that's he put KP in his place. So everyone loves to see that. Aiden, what are your thoughts on it, mate?
Yeah, it's like Jye said initially. Most of the country's reaction was when he got appointed was, oh no, like we're really at the bottom of the barrel here, aren't we? But when you sort of step back and look at it, I think Test match cricket is probably the hardest form to captain. I think quite easily, and for me, it could quite easily be the hardest sport to captain. So not only that, but he had to captain a team he hadn't played for in years, in a form he hadn't been playing well for in years. And not only that, but he had all the outside noise he had to deal with as a brand new captain. So it's probably one of the hardest things a sports person probably ever had to do. It's a new coach as well, which for a new captain is probably the hardest factor. So I think at that sort of juncture where obviously Smudge was banned and so was Dave, I think they had two options. I think they could go with someone who'd captained at the national level before, like Tim, or at least played Test cricket and was a senior player, because he was, how old was he when he got appointed? I think he was quite old in terms of the team. Yeah. Or they could blood a completely new captain, like a young guy, like, I think some national teams have been doing around the world, and they chose to go with the senior guy. And I think that was a good call, because I think the team was really young and they chose to go with Tim to sort of bring these guys up, because obviously you got like Nath and Starkey and Hoff. They played a bit of cricket, but they haven't played much cricket. Most senior players were banned for a year and a half. So if they had have gone with like Travis Head as captain, then I think we would have been an absolute garbage fire, to be honest. So I think it was a really good call in hindsight. I think obviously he does lean on Smudge a bit, but I think that's fair enough, because like he was put in the hardest time, and I think it's unfair to compare him to other captains, because obviously like Kohli moved on from Dhoni. Like Kohli played with Dhoni for years and then he moved on, and there was consistency there. It's the same thing with Root. Like Root played for a bit, he was consistent, whereas Tim was just brought in after being in exile. So you can't compare him to, like, obviously Michael Clarke is more aggressive, but Tim couldn't be, because Tim had this young team, new coach and everything. Like success wasn't the goal. The goal was, to play fair cricket again and to win the fans back. So I think comparing him to others is unfair. And I think the job he's done to not, get results. I think the results don't matter, but to bring Australian cricket back to popularity and, back to making the country proud again is massive. And you can sort of see that in his game, the way he digs in. He just wants to bring this team back up, whether that's win or losing, like in more of a cultural sense. So, yeah, I think, there's a few ways they could have gone about it, but I think in the end it was a great choice.
Yeah, no, beautifully said, mate. Obviously, yeah, something you said there, which is really was he didn't, like I didn't really think of it that way. Like he didn't have that transition sort of period, like the sort of the handover of captaincy, I guess. Like, you could be someone, you have like your understudy for a few years or whatever, and you sort of learn the ropes, but he was thrown into it. So yeah, I think he's done a really good job. I'm not going to get stuck up into it, but I wanted to ask another question as well, because people always attack his batting and saying his average is pretty poor, which I don't think it is too bad. But do you think
32.6 on research?
Here we go. What is it, mate?
32.6.
32.6. Yeah. So do you think? And I'm not trying to compare or anything. It's just my question to you guys. This is the way I've always looked at it. Do you think people are like? Because I mean, Adam Gilchrist, obviously, and he's just changed the role of a keeper almost. Everyone's looking for that keeper batsman now, where it's like they're hand in hand instead of you keeper first, and then like they expect the batting almost to be really good as well. Like I'm not going to compare, but what's Ian Healy's Test average? Like I'm not saying they're anywhere near as good as each other in keeping wise, but I think we're looking for the next Adam Gilchrist all the time. And I don't think, it's a once in a lifetime sort of player. Like I'm sure he'll come around maybe again, but we can't keep always looking for that. Like I think he's a really good gloveman. Tim Paine, I think he does really well. And I think he's a solid bat. Like he's not setting the world alight, but I think he's does his job. But yeah, that's my question to you. Do you think we're looking for the next Adam Gilchrist? We're too harsh, and he's set the standard so high. Then Brad Haddon as well to a lesser extent, but still was okay. So yeah, Jye, what are your thoughts on that, mate?
Oh, look, I think before Tim Paine, maybe we were. We had like Matthew Wade in the side, and he's more of an aggressive player. So I think definitely before Tim, they were looking at the Adam Gilchrist type of players. But now, with Tim in the side keeping and the way that he bats, probably not as much. And I think, as we touched on, Alex Carey, he'll be the next one. He's sort of that in between. He can play a steadying ship role, but he can also play aggressively. So no, I don't think they're looking for that type of cricketer anymore. No.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. Speech, Aiden. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think your point with the Adam Gilchrist, I think it's a universal sort of movement because you've got guys like De Kock in South Africa, Rashad Hunt, these sort of guys that are really aggressive batsmen, and then like they're good keepers, but I think they'd be better keepers in the country. I think that's sort of what we had with Wade was just, an aggressive batsman that could keep. Whereas I think now with Tim Paine, we've actually got a really good keeper that, is handy with the bat, isn't amazing, isn't, really aggressive, go get you 100 runs off, 60 balls like Gilly. But, I think we've really gone back to the keeper first, batter second, like you put it. And I honestly think it's a good move because like our top six isn't great at times. Like we have collapses really easy. So I think with guys like Tim Paine that are able to like hold down the fort for a little while, I think it's valuable rather than someone come out and lose their wicket straight away.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Aiden, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the keeper discussion is a really interesting one. In my opinion, because obviously we're talking about tests only here, because that's sort of only what Tim plays. I think in all the other formats, I think Gilly's just a completely separate conversation. But in my opinion, in Test cricket, the wicket keeper is almost like depending on how many all-rounders you play, almost like your third or second all-rounder. I think they need to be able to do three things, and Jye sort of touched on it. I think depending on where your keeper bats, because your keeper's obviously in Test cricket going to bat like 1 or 2, or they're going to bat at 6 or 7 before the tail. So with us, we haven't opened with a keeper probably since Gilly sort of had a go at it, right? So I see a keeper, if they're batting before the tail, need to be able to, 1, stop the collapse, which a guy like, I really love Brad Haddon. I think Brad Haddon did that really well. You had confidence when Hads went out there every time because you knew he could stop the collapse. So the best keepers can do that, but then they can also come out there when you've got a lot of runs and just smack it for 50 before you declare, or smack it for 50, and get your team into aggressive position. And Hads could do that as well. And I think Gilly sort of brought that in because before Gilly, like you're saying, the keeper's job was just to hold the stick and defend the tail from getting exposed. But I think once Gilly started smacking it around like crazy, I think that second part of batting came in. And obviously the third thing is wicket keeping. Like if you're not a good keeper, I don't think you should get picked. And I do think, to answer your question, you should get picked on your keeping first. But in saying that, knowing this Australian team, we need a batsman. Like we need that extra all-rounder that can bat. But I do think, like you look at guys, I think Jack mentioned like Paine, and I look at like Joss Butler, like he keeps a few of their forms, or even Bairstow, who keeps for England as well. They're sort of still one form keeper bat, like they can keep, but that like Bairstow can't really smack them around, and Joss can't really hold it down. And Pant can't defend. Pant's coming out there, and he's Gilchrist 2.0. So that's obviously what India's looking for. Whereas Dhoni used to come out, and Dhoni could do either one. So I think we should look for that sort of keeper, ideally. And I think Carey is that. But yeah, as far as like they're only looking for a batsman, I think they're only doing that because we desperately need it, because we keep collapsing all the time, which is very embarrassing. But then at the same time, like there's nothing more frustrating than like tearing away, like when a side's getting heaps of runs up on you and then your keeper drops a catch. So I don't think we've really had, like I love Tim, but I don't think we've really had like 3-level like top tier keeper since Hads. I think Hads could do it all. Like he never really dropped them, and he could bat in both ways. So I think hopefully the next person they're looking for is that.
Beautiful. What's that, mate? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, Sangakkara and Gillian are like, they sort of changed the role of the wicketkeeper, I guess, and sort of set a new standard. But obviously, yeah, keeping, in my opinion, keeping first, and then you take him back. That's secondary bonus. Sweet. So moving on to the Sheffield Shield, which is obviously just sort of came back up. We've got one match in now. WA versus South Australia again. They seem to be getting a few games in, which is good. Western Australia made 465 before declaring, with Sean Marsh scoring a ton and Cameron Green scoring a ton too, which is good to see. South Australia bowling, the fan favourite, or a lot of people's favourite, I would have thought. Lloyd Pope, 4 for 92. He's a bit of a character. Then Nathan McAndrew, 3 for 71. Touchdown South Africa. Ooh. South Australia's innings were all out for 492, with Travis Head 163. Pretty impressive. And then Jake Carter also scoring a ton. WA's bowling, Joel Paris 3 for 73, and Lance Morris 3 for 91. Moving on to the second innings, obviously this match did end in a draw. But yeah, second innings, WA, Hilton Cartwright made 121 not out, and Popey 3 wickets again for 123, albeit of 22 overs. All right. Moving on.
Can I just say, oh, sorry.
Are you right, mate?
The one thing I picked up from that, if we were looking way too far ahead to the Ashes, the question I get, like obviously we sort of joke about him, you know, he's a fan favourite, he's got the red hair, and he's, you know, name's Lloyd and he bowls leggies and all that jazz. But like, seriously, we saw that Swepson has been given a go in the squad multiple times, yet he only really shows his form in the shorter forms. Do you think he deserves another go this summer, or do you think they should just put Pope in the squad? Like, who do you see over the top of the other at this stage?
You
guys speech. I want to say something.
I'm just mulling it over. It's close. I love the question. It's a really good question you pose. I mean, I love Pope. I love him, but then Swepson is, I don't know. It's tough. I'd probably still go Swepson for now, but it's a really good question. Yeah.
I agree with Speech there. Do you know how old he is? Have a guess. Throw a number out. How old is Lloyd Pope?
23.
21?
18.
18, Jesus Christ. Is he even old enough to play cricket? No, so 21, which I thought, yeah, I'm obviously very young. So I think Swepson, yeah, for me. But
Sweppo's about 24, I think.
Years older, yeah.
Josh? I think, yeah. I think viewers, if you ever want to chime in, leave us a message.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Speech has set up all our socials as well. He's the social media guy. He's a video editor. He's the looks of the show. He's certainly the hair of the show. He's got enough of that. Probably not the brains though. So if you want to send us a message or whatever, obviously first episode in. We're second. From now on, we're probably going to take some questions and all that as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Aiden. Good shout, mate.
Yeah, Jye, what do you reckon?
Anything?
Look, Swepson just still ahead at the moment. And as you touched on, Lloyd Pope, he's only 21 years of age, and he's definitely got a future. I think we're all aware of that. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve. He's bowled well in some games for the Sydney Sixers. I would have Swepson just ahead at the moment, but I think Pope's coming after him, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm going with Popey.
Whoa! Have you seen the bromance as well with Carlos Brathwaite?
I've seen it. How good is that?
Cool. All right. So we'll move on now to sort of what's in the news of cricket. Obviously, there's a lot going on at the moment. We'll get stuck right into it. So it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. Everyone has their opinion on it, and I would love to get all of your guys' opinion on it. We mentioned him briefly, the little fella. Justin Langer, obviously, an Australian champion, Australian legend. He's sort of been, it's reportedly that players are drained sort of by how intense he is and sort of his mood swings. Obviously, a few incidents like the Toasty incident where he was upset at a player, I believe to be Marnie, could be wrong, for going out against India eating a Toasty, had a bit of a crack at him, from what we understand. The Do It All guy speech, we'll get a video up here now as well of the incident with the celebration video, where of course cricket staffer posted a video. I believe it was Bangladesh running onto the field after winning the series, and then Australian team manager Gavin, I'm say this right, Dovey, I think it's pronounced, initially sort of questioned the staff over why the video had been posted. And the conversation sort of escalated when the staffer refused to back down. Obviously, the staffer was just doing his job. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong. Cricket.com.au, obviously, it posts a lot of, not just Australian based. It's a worldwide. It posts worldwide for the cricketing news. So I think there was no issue, and I believe it's his job to post, even if we don't win. Can't be biased. Post them, running onto the field, celebrating their win over the Aussies, and they weren't too happy with that. Justin Lang got involved, and apparently it was a bit of an uproar about it, and some players were taken aback and with the sense of sort of unease about what had transpired. Did you guys sort of hear about that, and what were your thoughts on it, Speech?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Especially considering that cricket.com.au is, it's an international cricket site. Written by Australians, I guess. So I think it's a little tacky, I guess, from Cricket Australia to even question, I guess, the poor guy that just thought he was doing his job. He records this moment that Bangladesh beats Australia. Really, he would have seen that coming. That's a real big win for those guys. So they were obviously really happy about it. And then, for the guy that recorded that and captured that, really, really good footage. I do like it. It's pretty crappy, really. I really don't like that from Cricket Australia at all.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Aiden, what were your thoughts on it, mate?
Yeah, I think it's just more of JL and the sort of guy he is. I think he sort of needs to be in control of absolutely everything, and it has to be done his way. I think that's sort of the way he's been since he was, brought into Australian cricket. I guess as far as him as coach and the staff, obviously we mentioned it before, how he, like Tim, was brought in out of nowhere in a really tough time for the team, for the nation. So I think it's the head coach sort of conversation's a lot like the captaincy one. I think Tim should move along. Obviously he's getting older, but I don't think now's the time. I don't even think a season from now is the time. I think because the team's changing so much, the only time that Tim should give it up is when a new guy comes in and can play seasons with the team and have his spot consistently there. So I think that's the same thing with the coach. I don't think you can just go, JL, look, you're being too aggressive. You're being too harsh on the players. You need to move along. We'll get this guy in from out here. I think this next coach needs to be around the team a little bit, or at least around the team in some form, in one of the forms, and then they can move off JL to whoever it is. I think there's like Langer just brings too much like arrogance and firmness to the role. I think what he did, much like I spoke about Tim, what he did to bring us up from that horrific place is amazing. And I think he was probably the perfect man for the job because it's a young team and you do have to be harsh on players. And we needed someone who is really harsh because I think Lehman wasn't. And that's ultimately what led to him getting kicked out because he, let us cheat, I guess. Even, that's another story. But I think he was perfect for that. But I think, his time's up. I think he can't go on because, you hear about the players being exhausted and mentally unstable because JL's just, pushing them way too hard, especially in an environment now where you're in bubbles and you're stressed out anyway because you can't go to all these places because it's unsafe. I think his coaching style is sort of just a bit outdated and he needs to move on. So I thank him for, what he's done, but I think to rebuild rebuild relationships with a new coach for the players, you can't that's too hard when you bring someone in out of nowhere. So I think he needs to go, but I think the new coach needs to be with him for a little bit first and it needs to be sort of seamless for the players' sake.
Yeah, well said, mate. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he came in same as Paine almost. He came in at a tricky spot and he's made very well of a tricky situation. Before I throw to Jye, I'll just bring it up as well. So more recently, Justin Langer had a crack at Nathan Ellis for wearing I'm not going to bring up every single incident that JL's ever sort of had, every confrontation, but I thought this one was pretty interesting. Nathan Ellis had a watch on. He was on as a sub fielder, I believe. It took a pretty good catch from memory. He had I've got a pretty bulky watch on now, but he had a very slim sort of watch on. But I don't think it was a big deal. So I was saying before, Uzi wears a bloody dinner plate on his wrist and no one ever had an issue with that. But apparently JL had a crack at him for wearing the sort of wearing the watch and whatever, and apparently he's just against jewellery. But Jye, did you hear about that, mate? Or what was your sort of thoughts on that?
Oh, I heard a little bit about it. It sounds ridiculous when you think about it. But look, I guess it depends. Look, as you said, players in the past have worn watches and whatnot out onto the field. And it could be an each their own sort of thing. But depends if Langer's put in specific rules himself and he's gone against them, then that's a bit more understandable, I should say. But where are we at? I mean, you said at the start, the players feel tense now, with his mood swings and stuff like that. For the players to reportedly say stuff like that, how bad do you think it is inside the camp? I guess that's a question I'm posing to you guys: is how bad, do you think it is in there if they're saying stuff like that about their own coach?
Yeah, I'll bring up a few things as well. Other things I've got written down here as well. Just touching on that. Obviously, one, if it's getting leaked, it's not a private thing. That sort of says one thing. Or we're hearing about all this sort of stuff that should usually be almost not swept under the rug, but should be fairly private, which is another question. But it seems like there's a lot of issues, and it's going to be hard to fix, in my opinion. There's been, Dizzy Gillespie come out and says that the criticism of JL, he said it should have remained private. Ian Chappell, who's never scared to give his opinion on anything, said he's on borrowed time as a coach. So I think his contract ends end of the Ashes series, I believe, and I don't think we'll see JL much further past that. So what are your thoughts on it, Aiden?
Yeah, well, to answer Jye's question, and we sort of talk about it a lot in class, when stuff happens in a sanctum of a team and it comes out, you obviously know someone in there wanted it to. So I think that speaks a lot to either player unhappiness or players like the lack of support for Langer. I think it says one of those two things are true. So obviously, yeah, to answer your question, Jye, I think that it must be pretty bad in there for the players. And I think that's probably coming from JL being satisfied. I think he's satisfied at where he's brought us to. So he's demanding like immediate success. And I think obviously losing to Bangladesh is probably his last straw. So he's probably making it incredibly harsh on them. And like I said before, in a time like this, that's probably the last thing you want to be doing, because players will be very fragile and they'll be vulnerable. And for him to be, you know, classic old Justin Langer, like it's fine if he was doing it to himself like he used to when he played. But, you know, in 2021 with this sort of roster of relatively young players, I think it's a bit too much. But yeah, to answer your question, like I said, again, I think it's real. I think it is quite bad in there, because I feel like from, you know, hearing these things and reading them, JL's being way too demanding on immediate success when, like I said before, we shouldn't be worrying about that. We should be worrying about playing a certain brand of cricket every time we walk out and earning the respect back of the nation. Because it's only been, 4 years barely. And that's, you know, only 4 different summer seasons for us in our home country. And there's obviously better teams out there because they have played more consistent cricket with a more consistent team than us. So yeah, that's what I had to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we put ourselves in, you know, Tim Paine's sort of shoes or any sort of player's shoes, for example, you know, got an Ashes series coming up, got a World Cup coming up, they're not going to say too much. Like, they've got more important things to worry about, not more important necessarily, but they've got other things to worry about. He's contracted till sort of the end of the year. I fully expect him, obviously, to see that out. They're not going to come out and say he's a, you know, prick or whatever. Like, they're just not going to do that. So we may find out more after the Ashes series, I believe. But my question to you guys is, will Justin Langer be coaching sort of next summer at the end? Will his contract be renewed, Jye?
No, I don't think so.
Sweet. Short and sharp, I like it. Speech?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think it will, and I don't think it should either.
Yep, agree. Aiden?
No, and Ricky Ponting to our next coach.
Like it.
Hot take.
I like it, yeah.
I'm on that. Yeah. Love punters. So. All right, sweet. So one more thing to go through before we wrap it up is obviously, of course, the Afghanistan Test that, you know, we're all going to go to in Belarus is basically effectively cancelled. I don't think it's been fully official. I believe it said it's basically about to be, and by the time this goes live, it basically maybe could be. But as far as I know, it basically is cancelled. But Cricket Tasmania CEO Dominic Baker came out and said that obviously it's not acceptable that they don't follow female sport, talking about the Taliban, of course. We won't get stuck in too much to the political side of it, but obviously it's a tough situation for all, I would have thought. Personally, I think obviously it's really annoying that it's not going to go ahead. We're not going to be able to be there at it, but I don't think I could be prouder. Like, I'm pretty happy with this Cricket Tasmania and Cricket Australia for doing what they've done. End of the day, if they're not going to support, you know, as Cricket Australia have been very vocal about it, they're not going to support women's cricket or women's sport in general, then yeah, they shouldn't be able to come. They can't be one, not the other, especially when Australia has done so much to promote women's cricket, so much money has been put into it, so much work's gone into promoting women's cricket. I think if we let them just come over, just let the men come over, then sort of not worry about the women, I think that sets a bad tone. So I'm pretty happy with the decision that they've made. It's unfortunate it won't go ahead, but as I said, I'm pretty happy with the decision they made. What's your opinion on it, Speech?
Yeah, obviously same as you. Disappointed that it's not going ahead. Disappointed that, you know, we don't get to go to the match. But completely agree with the fact that the stance that Cricket Australia, Cricket Tasmania that they've made is good, and definitely for all the right reasons. Definitely no hard feelings there. Just a little concerning for the men, how much of a warm up they're going to get for the Ashes. I mean, England had India, 5-match series, so they played Test cricket, but then our first Test match for the Ashes will be our first since January. So we'll be a little rusty on the Test stage. That's probably my biggest concern, but obviously the stance they made is definitely 100% correct.
Yeah, beautiful. Jye, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on top of that. I think it's fantastic that our country and as well Cricket Tasmania have taken a stance on it, put their foot down and said, well, this is what's going to happen if you're not going to, support women's cricket and sport in general. So well done on that. But yeah, it's disappointing. I was looking forward to that Test match because Afghanistan's got a few talented players that they come over here and play in the Big Bash. So it would have been interesting to see how that one played out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, mate. Aiden.
Yeah, I think you explained it pretty well, Sammy. I'm just immensely proud of Cricket Australia. I think not only does it show our girls that they're really important to our to cricket in our country, which they are. They're one of the best in the world in all formats. So it shows, reinforces to them that they're very, very important to us. And then it also sends an incredible message, like we've talked about. Like, this was going to be Afghanistan's first Test in Australia, I think, ever. It was supposed to be really, really historical. Might not be ever, but I think it was it was their first Test in Australia for Test Championship points. I might be wrong. I think it was at least significant for them in a way it never has been before. So for us to go, back in their face, like, you're not going to get this significant match in your history unless you change this and get, in line with the rest of the cricketing world. I think it's brave. I think, like Speech said, definitely courageous, given that our boys haven't played since January, and how much we're potentially going to lose, financially and all the rest of it. But I think it's obviously the right call and one of the best calls we've made in a long time in terms of cricket and the evolution of cricket. And I'm just, like I said, really bloody proud of Cricket Australia and to be Aussie.
Yeah, beautifully said, mate. Well, it'll be interesting to see as well because the ICC could potentially, I'm not too sure the logistics behind it, but obviously they could. There's been talks about them obviously revoking their international status because they're not going to fulfil or let the women have a team either side. So yeah, watch this space. I'm not sure what's going to happen there.
It's obviously a big story as well because, like I mentioned, I'm pretty certain that Afghanistan's men's side only just broke into the Test Championship, just gained entry. So, yeah, like you're saying, if the ICC decided to do that, that's a massive story in cricket.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just sort of add a bit of context to the story in case anyone doesn't really hasn't been following or doesn't know what's going on. So Taliban's Cultural Commission head deputy told Australian broadcaster SBS that it was neither necessary nor obedient for women to play sport. In cricket, they might face a situation where their face and body will not be covered. And of course, that's against their religion. An interesting thing I did find as well, and I want to stuff the pronunciation up again, but the Afghanistan Cricket Board's former women's development manager, Tuba Sangha, said that boycotting the tournament would actually not help and would destroy the hope of Afghanistan people. I believe she said something along the lines as well of that at least the women or the young girls would have at least seen the men playing, and at least had someone to look up to and sort of think, I can do that one day. That was her opinion on it. But yeah, so I'll add that to the context of the story. But we've all got our opinions on it, and yeah, I completely agree. So with that being said, I think that just about wraps it up, boys. Do you have anything else you wanted to add? Anything else we need to cover or anything else at all?
Do well, Sammy.
Cricket's, mate. Cricket's. No, you're not hearing anything from
Thanks
me.
Thanks for sticking with us if you've come this far. And, go Aussies.
Yeah, beautiful. As Aiden said, go Aussies, and thanks for sticking with us for our first episode, first of many, we all hope. I really enjoyed it, boys. It's been really good. If you're not already, speak to us as sort of, you started us off rolling here. So we're on what are we on? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
Yep.
No, we're on everything. Links to be in the description, along with a 300-word essay on how well I hosted today. And yeah, get around us, send us some questions. We'll be adding stories, polls, trying to engage with our fans as much as possible. And we look forward to seeing you the next sort of couple of weeks.
Yep, love it.
Aussies.